All right. All right, guys, we're live. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to another week, another Thursday night of The Good Life, where we're talking health, wealth, love, and happiness, all the things that comprise a good life and how we can get better in those areas in order to live our best life, to live the life that we're designed to. So, got my buddies here. Stu, got Kobi. What's up, guys?
All right. And guys, today what we're gonna do is gonna start off with a little a little practice here, right? I'm gonna give you the phonetic, all right? Now we're gonna say it all together with confidence, all right? We're gonna say it all with confidence. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
So, Kobi.
Kobi.
Yeah.
Kobi.
Yeah.
So the accent is over the I, like the I.
Yeah, it's an accent aigu over the I.
There it is.
Yeah,
I see you.
Stu and I took French together, and I say took very lightly because he crushed it, and I was in the back trying to make it.
No, you got the accent aigu on lock.
Yeah.
You
guys are great, man. You guys are great. I'm excited to be here today. It's been a long week. I'm sure it's a long week for a lot of folks. We're going through COVID with all of this. A lot is changing, but I have some good news, fellas. I was walking by the Chase Center. As you know, I live in San Francisco. I was walking by the Chase Center, and I saw that they were starting to put the basketball hoops back up on the courts when they had taken it up.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is a great sign as to things improving, things changing. So I'm very excited about that. What kind of changes are you guys seeing in your area before we get into our topic for today?
First off, let's just talk about that. How much I've been fiending to play basketball. Like, absolutely. Like, it's just been the thing. So, right, for you guys, this will be a good conversation anyway. Like, that has been my, like, place of happiness, my place of flow, right? It's the basketball court. I remember going to therapy a while back, and I was going through this like rough time, just always busy, just always like doing a bunch of stuff. And my therapist asked me something along the lines of like, what do you do for fun? Right? Like, what do you do just to like relax? And I was like, I don't really have much, but I love basketball. And she was like, oh, well,
what's that?
Yeah, I know, right?
Fun?
Fun.
Does that involve money?
Fun. This is a whole nother topic, right? Like I've just learned a bunch of things about myself this past week that like I'm like adverse to some humor. Like I choose not to use humor in different areas because I'm like too like stoic. I don't know. We maybe talk about that another time. But either way, basketball is like my place. So like when I wouldn't play basketball for weeks or months at a time, I would just get busy and overrun and just wouldn't be in that place. And like, I needed basketball. Like I needed basketball to like keep me going whenever I'm on the court. It's like 2 hours, 3 hours, like the whole world could be right blowing up and I wouldn't know anything. So how desperate I am to play some basketball right now. So the fact that you brought that up could be is a good thing. There we go.
I'm gonna be giving out cookies today. Actually, I'll give out watermelons.
I prefer a gold star.
Gold star. All right, fine. We'll do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that special treatment. So, as you guys know, I live in crazy Florida. Florida man. So for us, like it's been progressively opening up for quite some time. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I've been seeing a lot of memes like like other countries have been closed. Like down here, it's like a different lifestyle. Going back and forth for me from Florida to Virginia. I literally just flew back down here to Florida today, actually. And man, the energy is so different. Like there's a lot more excitement in Virginia now, but like 6 months ago, the energy was so off. So to me, it's nice to know that like my friends and family back home are like really starting to get into regular life again. Yeah, I mean down here it really hasn't affected our schedule. I mean, we still go out to our own risk level and go exercise and be out and around people and It's certainly been like a controversial thing, especially for me having that night and day going from Virginia to here. And Virginia wasn't even the worst. So I won't even pretend, like in places like New York, Boston, Chicago, some of those really big, colder cities all year round, they really got hit hard. So I guess it's just nice to know that, normality is coming back to some degree.
To some degree, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Who knows when we'll ever get fully back, if there is a fully back, if there is a normal, right? We keep throwing out these words of like new normal and all this stuff. Like, what is this going to go to? Yeah, right. What is normal? Like, what are we thinking is normal, and are we setting ourselves up for failed expectations, or right? You know what I mean? So it's a good question.
Speaking of new normal too, I mean, I kind of wonder, is going back to normal such a good thing, right? Is it really such a good thing for a number of reasons? I've really been thinking about this quite a bit. Looking into if not trying to ruffle any feathers here, but looking into this with
let's ruffle them. Let's ruffle them. That's why we're here. Let's do it.
What are we here for?
quote unquote great reset, and then this whole dollar situation just continuing to go down here, and listen, just kind of steadying up and seeing what's going on, right? A lot of talk. I don't know, Chris, if you want to elaborate on this, or if not, obviously all good. But a lot of talk of digital currency, cryptocurrency being kind of the move, and then the fiat system going down, So a lot of that stuff happening. I'm kind of like a wait and see sort of attitude, because I have a hard time believing. In what? That, ladies and gentlemen, is a flashback from our last episode where we talked about whether or not we're planners or wingers or whatever you want to call it. Right. Is that, are you winging it? Well, in certain aspects, right? But what that looks like and what that looks like for your family, I have a hard time believing that people who have been benefiting from the fiat system and are at the top of it are really going to allow it to just like, I don't know. So not just that, but also a lot of changes coming in terms of how people interact. Are people ever going to be comfortable again going in for hugs with strangers? Are we ever going to be, I have a wedding coming up, right? Or is it going to be a new thing now for big events to have like, certificate of vaccination or something like that to say, are you safe? Are you good? I think a lot is going to change, and or has already changed. And I'm curious where this, when things open up, what things will look like in the area of health, what things will look like in the area of finances, and what things will look like in terms of how we interact with our loved ones and also strangers. It wasn't too long ago, if you dare sniffle or cough in public, good Lord,
It's still that way though, isn't it? Like I've been out recently and I know that like someone has sneezed and multiple people have turned around. Like I still see it. I think that's one of those new normal things that like we're just on heightened alert for all this type of stuff now,
Yeah. Heightened alert. Well put.
Yeah. So to answer that question, on the money side of things, the digital currency side, because, obviously it's important to stay on top of these things. It's why I pay attention to it, so I can give you guys the information if you're not paying attention to it. But absolutely, digital currency. So it depends how deep we want to get into this thing. The blockchain technology, right? That technology, the blockchain, will change everything about our lives. It'll change everything. When you get to a place of this peer-to-peer, not encrypted, just like you can maneuver and move however you want without any friction or anything on top. That technology has the ability to change the world, right? It could absolutely change the world. Very similar to the internet, right? Because the internet for those of you that don't know, right, it's only been out for like, 25 years or something like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because there's some people that were born and only know that the internet exists. Like 25 years ago, like no one was on the internet. We didn't have this ability. We couldn't be live on all these places at one time. Like all of that has changed. So blockchain has the ability to potentially do the same exact thing. And on top of the blockchain are these currencies, right? Cryptocurrencies, what everyone knows. Back in probably 2016, 2017, there was this big boom of what they call ICOs. I don't know if you guys remember this at all, but ICOs were initial coin offerings where like just like a company could do an IPO, right? Where it's initial public offering. Back into like 2017, 2016, they were doing all these ICOs, initial coin offerings. That's how you got all these new little cryptocurrencies, little coins, altcoins is what they call them, right? There's a lot of that going on. And now we're in 2021. It's kind of settled down a bit. There's always going to be some lower coins and some altcoins and things to kind of, play around with. But we've kind of settled into understanding kind of how the cryptocurrency side works. Now, what you said, Kobi, I got always like raise my hand when I do it now.
That's what the Axon Agu does.
Perfect. Do that every time.
Every time, bro. Every time. So, so like I was saying, Kobi, to answer that question as far as like how this is going to be different, because what we're seeing with fiat currency is 100% correct, right? Like that the fiat side, right? The value of the dollar may go down, right? Not may, like for sure will. And like, we just don't know when all of this is going to turn. But just like you said, the people that are benefiting from this, the reason why blockchain is very far away for what most people think is because governments and the powers that be, right? If you believe in that, however we want to go down that path, right? But the governments and the powers that be will not allow that, because there would literally be nothing that would stop you or me from going to purchase bombs from somewhere else as just an individual, and that transaction cannot be, it can't be seen on the blockchain. You won't know who it went to. So literally the only thing that would hold our civilization together would be like war, would be armies, it would be, right? Like, and governments knowing these types of things, knowing how big that is, they're not going to allow this to happen. If we think back about what just happened with, Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg about to create his own coin with Facebook has 1.1 billion users, not to mention they own WhatsApp and Instagram. If he created his own digital currency, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, like that entity could potentially have more power than countries. That's why the government came in and was like, yeah, no, we can't have this happen. That's not going to happen, because they know how powerful that is. So all that being said, blockchain is definitely going to change.
I thought we lived in a free market.
Don't do it to him. Don't do it to him.
Exactly, right? Like we could go down that rabbit hole for some time. But again, understanding teaser, right? The powers that be, I don't think that they will allow it to happen without regulation, it's not going to be as free as people think. However, it does make sense if you are sitting on a lot of US currency to start to think about digital currency. Like, all that being said, the governments might not want it to happen that quickly, but it's already happening, right? Companies are buying up tons of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and now, all the stuff that's happening. So there will be a change in the currency and how we use it, but I don't know how quickly that's going to be, and I don't know that things will go absolutely to nothing, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like for me, like, I'm not too familiar with all the different cryptocurrencies. I'm also not too familiar with managing my own investments on like a day-to-day level. Like a lot of my buddies are on Robinhood and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's a down the road type deal. But when I think of Bitcoin, I think of like the horses that just got out of the stable. Like, is the powers that be, are they capable of pulling that back in, or are they just saying like, okay, that one's gone. We're not getting it. It's gone. Some of the other ones, I hear what you're saying. like you catch it early, like, before it has all that momentum, all the people's money built into it. And what I think is really interesting of what's happening right now is I think we're witnessing how the internet is both being used by powers that be to maintain regulation, both socially, financially, politically. Am I allowed to say that? Probably is how I feel. And, we're seeing all of that control because the internet has made it all of a sudden possible for group thinking to be way, way, way utilized and overplayed. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I don't know, where's my live going? Did our live cut out on IG?
No,
mine did.
Yours on IG,
anyways,
but you're still here.
So we're seeing all that happening. If you're able to invite me back, that'd be great. It could be for the IG live.
Got you.
Oops.
Okay, cool. All right, perfect. All right. Long story short, if we are, we're seeing that control, but we're missing. Like while we have the control going in one way, we also have I'm hearing like a lot of like keyboard typing. That's confusing me. Sorry, I'm not doing too good at winging this now.
You got this, bro.
Appreciate it. A lot going on. All right. Long story short, we're seeing how the internet is being utilized to maintain control and regulate. But at the same time, I see things like Bitcoin. I see things like the Robinhood fiasco that happened like a couple weeks ago as instances where the internet is also trying to break free. So it's this really cool thing happening right now with the internet. Like, which way is it going to go? And
it's going to go. I'll answer that question for you because I have a feeling it's going to go the other way. Like the internet is going to be less free over time. The internet, like the governments and the powers that be, will eventually get to a place where they're controlling the internet, where they're limiting what's being seen, what you can do. That's what's going to happen. That's in my opinion. In my opinion, I really believe it, and could be agreed.
So there seems to be a lot of evidence to that.
Listen. Let me see if I can bring a little bit of my experience to this a little bit. So I was really early on blockchain and cryptocurrency. I was super early. I was so early. People were like, "What are you doing?" Mm-hmm. I was so early that I'm mad looking around at all these people buying all this stuff with all this, what I call fake growth, right? And I say that because I was early on the white papers, right? Mm-hmm. I read those, okay? The value of it, and you have to understand that cryptocurrency is different than blockchain. Right. The value is the underlying technology is the blockchain.
But I don't know this. Can we elaborate on this for our viewers, like the difference between the two?
Yeah.
And me.
I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. However, what you should understand, and Chris, feel free to elaborate in a bit, but let me make my point here real quick. But there's an underlying technology of blockchain that exists, right? And on top of that, cryptocurrency was built. You can use blockchain to build anything. Okay. So just understand that first, and then I'll make a point. And if you want to elaborate on the difference between the two, feel free. But to me, as one of the early crazy ones, all right, and there was others that were crazier than me that brought me in, right? As soon as institutions, governments got involved, to me, the value is gone, right? Because if you imagine blockchain being this, or even it being this web, right? What's happening is they've now cut out different, because they can't really control blockchain as a technology, right? They've now cut out different sections of it to regulate it, right? So what you're really looking at here is, again, the powers that be, right, are going to find a way to wedge themselves in there. But the whole point in the beginning was to get away from them. So as soon as they started getting involved, that's what turned me off, right? And of course, it turned me off because I was looking at it in terms of what's the real value? And I'm one of those in terms of this is, revolutionary, this is really cool in the sense of like everything. The problem is establishment. And if we're getting away from that by allowing this technology to do what it's supposed to do, free market, that means that things that I care about, like for example, liberation of Africa, has a chance. And that's a much deeper topic than anybody, right?
Sure.
Countries in Africa don't have a chance because the money supply is controlled by already established Western institutions, right? And they use that to pull and puppeteer our politicians, right? To essentially make it so that they can go ahead and essentially buy our raw materials for dirt cheap by putting our countries in debt. Now, you can fact check me here. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You'll know I always got a book for you. Always got a book for you. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Check my work, right? So I saw this, I always grew up thinking, man, like, what's like how I care about seeing my people, right, have a chance to actually utilize what we have that the world needs, which is all the natural resources that we feed to the rest of the world. But see, they use these fiat-based system because they control the money supply in debt third world countries and puppeteer them so that they can then be allowed to get our natural resources for dirt cheap, right? Mm-hmm. Liberation of Africa is not good for first world countries, period. It's not good for first world countries. Why? Because when that starts going on and we start actually controlling our own natural resources, things get real tricky for first world countries that don't actually produce. Right? They just consume. And in fact, when you look at the US as of now and they're coming out of this pandemic, they're not producing anything. Right. We're just consuming. And if you don't believe me, look at these the trade difference. Look at how many containers that bring goods to the US and how many empty containers go back. Right? So again, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, look that up, check my work. But to me, that's what was exciting. I was like, oh shoot. 3G at that time, I had an intern at Qualcomm, and there was the idea of 3G being spread into countries in Africa, and that is all really they need, right, to utilize blockchain and thus get over this hump of like multiple different currencies and also being in debt. So making trade a lot more smooth and standardizing things. It was actually moving. That's where it was the biggest. That's where I saw the real hope being, right? Not like, oh, some kid in LA getting rich so he could buy a Lambo. Right. I didn't care about that. All I cared about, what's the value for the rest of the world and giving so-called third world countries an opportunity to actually play on this stage, right? And as soon as those that control fiat systems, money supply, realized what was going on and hopped in, to me, I was like, game was over, right? I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but that was my hope for it, right? I also was working at maybe let me not put it all out there, but I was working at a financial financial tech firm, to put it that way. And I saw, the rise of Robinhood during that time. What happened recently with Robinhood didn't surprise me at all, right? Because they put up this facade of like, we for the man, get out of here, you're not for no people. What people? What people? What people are you for? Because the question I have for you, Robinhood, is who pays you? Where do you get your bread? Because if you don't tell me where you get your bread, and I'll tell you who controls you, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get your bread from the people. Yeah. If you don't get your bread from the people, how you gonna tell me you for the people? Because as soon as your bread dries up, what do? You
gotta go back to the master.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's we this is what I'm telling folks here is like, listen, I'm no expert here. I'm just common sense street dude, bro. I got my masters in the streets. I look at it, right? I look at the situation and I use my common God-given sense to piece together what's going on. And to me, it's clear for something like crypto, right, in and of itself,
is also fiat. What backs it up? There's no gold.
Right.
There's no nothing. There's nothing that backs it up. So what's the difference? There is no difference. The value is in the blockchain. So I really like, for me, if the thing is establishments, institutions that we're trying to get from creative for true free market, because we haven't lived in one of those in I don't know when, right? Right. Then what are we doing here? Miss me with all this noise about, you'll make the money in the difference, right? I always tell people this, right? If you really look at our money system, really what we're seeing is what? We're seeing those that produce, those are the players on the court. Where those that speculate on the players on the court make more money than the players on the court. And those that speculate about about players on the court make more. So where are the producers? Right. Who actually produces, right? And then gets paid for it. So we don't live in that type of system, right? And because if we did, third world and first world would be flipped. So that's just my 2 cents there, man. That's just kind of how I feel when I look at the situation, because I've been looking at this for a while, and it's tricky. It's tricky because let me turn this over here to you, Chris. Let me quiet down a little bit.
Because you're making all the points, man. Like, that is it. And I think where we can kind of just pivot this a bit, because for everyone that's watching or listening, where you started this conversation could be. I'm gonna get over it. Don't worry. It'll be done soon, right?
Got it.
But either way,
we rising up, baby.
There we go. That's right. Could be. Hey, anyway, this is where we started the conversation. Was like this new normal. How are these things going to change how we interact or how we view ourselves or people around us in these areas, in our health, wealth, right? Love, happiness, relationships, those types of things. How is this new normal after maybe we're on the tail end of this pandemic. I don't even know if we can call it a tail end, but where we're at right now, right?
Basketball hoops are up.
Exactly. Right. There we go. At least we got that going, right? At least basketball hoops are up, but we don't really know. And so this is just one area that we're diving deep on right now, that we just had this conversation as far as how your wealth is going to change, how you're going to view money differently moving forward after this new normal, right? Like in this new normal or whatever it is, you're going to have to view things differently than what you had. One of the things I always talked about, and it's funny because before we jumped on this, and I love that we can just flow, and I'm sure you guys like it too, people that are listening, because again, this is just the real conversation. If you were just listening in on us just talking anyway, right?
Yeah. We really didn't plan this.
We really didn't. But it's good that we can go there. And one of the things that we were going to talk about beforehand was like the common myths, right? The myth buster, like kind of myths in the wealth side, myths in the health side, myths in your relationship and things like that. But this kind of goes directly to some of those myths that like how things were done in the past with money is not how they will be done in the future. One of the things I always see when I sit down with clients and people that I know is they'll say something along the lines of, well, my dad told me, or my uncle told me. And I was like, hey, that's great. But you got to understand, like when your dad was like crushing it, he could get 13% in a CD at the bank, right? Like the house that he was going to buy was like, $60,000, right? So like, that's great that like that model worked for him. But now we are stepping into a completely different realm with money, and the old habits and the old mindset and the old tactics will not carry us through. And this is what we're talking about in digital currency, right? Like there's so many people that shy away from digital currency and shy away from this crypto blockchain conversation. They think it's like one of those things, like, they keep everything super traditional. But at the end of the day, like follow the money. When the biggest players in the institutional money game are buying Bitcoin and, talking about blockchain, talking about other cryptos, and now you're seeing this thing happen. And just like Kobi said, right? Just like he said,
there you go,
I got you, but just right. You made me lose my point, bro. But like that's like
I got you on this.
But literally, like that's kind of what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm
I have a great
this may
segue.
sound like a go. well, if you have a segue, let me say this real quick, and then I got you. What I'm curious about, if this sounds like it's contradictory or not, but I don't believe it is. For me, the way I feel is like, when in doubt, go with the fundamentals, right? That's how I feel in health and whatever it is, right? Now, let's say money. What are the fundamentals, right? For me, the fundamentals are real assets. That's for me. And you correct me, bro. Again, I'll give this over to you. You correct me if I'm wrong, man. But you know what's never gone out of style? You know what's never gone out of style? Land. You know what's never gone out of style? Gold. You know what's never gone out of style? Right? Real assets have never gone out of style. I'm not saying you're going to get rich necessarily off of that. I'm not saying you're going to break some multi-trillion-dollar, fictitious number, because that's really what it is at the end of the day. Show me the $1 trillion. Where is it at?
Right.
I don't see it. Right.
Numbers on the computer.
Right. But real assets, you know where they are? They're right there. I can touch them. Mm-hmm. I can touch them. So for me, I kind of, the way I feel personally is like, when in doubt, go with the proven fundamentals. And the proven fundamentals at the end of the day, you can always convert. You know what I'm saying? Because you know where somebody with a ton of cryptocurrency needs? They're still gonna need a place to live.
That's right.
They're gonna need water to drink. They're gonna need food to eat. They're gonna need sunshine, right? They're gonna need a means of bartering. They're gonna need maybe not bartering, but of trading, right? And if that happens to be digital, great. If that happens to be paper fiat, great. If that happens to be friggin' turtle shells, great. Like whatever it is. But what is the real asset that's backing it up? And I feel the same way when it comes to health, right? So a lot of folks who come to me and say, hey man, like, what about this keto thing? Or what about this? Or what about this new thing? Or whatever. Guess what has never changed? Nature's 7 doctors have never changed. Ever. You can go keto if you want. You can go carnivore if you want. You can go fruit if you want. You go whatever. But the 7 nature's doctors say exactly the same. So for me, in kind of my practice and how I look at it, I focus on the 20% that gets you 80% of the results. And if you're going to play with the other 20, go right ahead.
That's good. That's good, man. Stu, I know. Jump in, man. I know you had some stuff.
Yeah, dude, I got a lot. You guys gave me a lot to chime in on here. I guess the first thing I really want to talk about here is, I was at a lunch with a client yesterday, and we were talking about pyramid structures in finance versus pyramid schemes. All right. Now, the big here's what I like about this. Like at the end of the day, whether we're talking about first to third world, whether we're talking about regulating the market, Bitcoin, Robinhood, whatever it is, the producers on the court. Like at the end of the day, if you're at the quote unquote bottom of the pyramid, you're doing more of the work and getting less of the money. The higher up you go, you are doing less of the work and you get more of the money. This happens in every single, not just money, this happens in every single hierarchy, or in the planet, in the animal kingdom. It doesn't matter. If you're at the top, you do less of the producing. Now, inherently, that concept is not wrong, but where it shifts from pyramid, because at some point someone has to steer the ship, right? So, but where it shifts from pyramid to pyramid scheme is where the intent is. Is it intended to lift people up? Is it intended to, as you learn more about the system and you learn more about let's take a corporation. Let's take a corporation that has, I'm not going to give an example, but let's take a corporation that has tremendously positive intent in the world. Hey, we want to give you a job. Take your, a stereotypical, hopefully non-corrupt nonprofit. Like you take one of those that has a great mission. It's trying to provide people with income while giving value to the world. At the end of the day, the people on the ground are doing the work and they're getting less of the money. The person at the top gets a percentage of all of those different incomes, and it trickles up. That production trickles all the way up to him now. Now, every single small business starts off as one guy at the top of the pyramid and grows to a pyramid. So I bring all this up because a lot of what we've been talking about here is the old normal to the new normal. And I'm shedding light on this because some individuals took this pandemic and what happened with our elections, what happened with how we reacted to this, what happened to claims of real science and fake science, and doctors standing up and saying certain things and getting silenced, talk about regulating social media. Like, there's so much regulation going on that I think that so much happened in such a short period of time, they almost made it too obvious. So a lot of individuals out there that, like me, used to kind of go about their day and be like, hey, I'm following the rules. I'm having a great time. Everything's going great. I'm checking all the boxes. All of a sudden, you start to pay more attention because you're like, hold on a second. Something's off here. There's too many things happening that are pointing at the fact that there is some type of, let's take all malintent out of it just for a moment. There's some type of regulation. Why? What the hell? I'm an adult. What is going on? Why are you regulating what I can consume? Kobi, your favorite thing to touch on. Why are you regulating what I consume? Why are you regulating where I can go? Why are you regulating any of this? I'm an adult, and by all of your socioeconomic, political, whatever standards, I'm well educated. I produce for the economy. I pay my taxes. Like, fuck off. So it really is, I think this year was eye-opening for some people who had always kind of heard like what can be, I don't know, I hate to even use the term, but like conspiracy theories, because it's so charged, and just a lot of people hear that term and probably even check out of here. And fine, if you don't want to open your mind up to the idea of those, then maybe this isn't the right program for you. But at the end of the day, I think there are a lot of people that utilize this year to figure out that, man, there's something off here. And then they started looking. And one of the worst things you can do when you're trying to go anywhere from regulate behind the scenes to performing a magic trick is accidentally let somebody know, like, hey, like a magic trick, you're supposed to be looking over here. Don't look at this hand. But as soon as they notice that the hand's doing something, now they're paying attention. So I'm really curious when it comes to this old normal versus the new normal with finances and trusting the money systems and trusting the political and the media and everything else out there, the norms, trusting what we are told to believe in. I'm wondering if they did too much in too little of a time and put a chink in the armor of a lot of people's naivety.
Absolutely. 100%.
I mean, the simple answer is yes, bro. And let me, Chris, I'll pass it on to you right here. But I think you make a great point when you speak to the intent, bro. Because yes, when you live in a group, there has to be eventually has to be one person who maybe is the mediator, or one person who's the quote unquote king or whatever, right? But see, the difference between civilizations of old that were conquered by so-called conquered, right? Because I say all this, I'm a student in history, guys. My first love is history. Sue knows this. If you know me at any point, my first love is history. I study that like no other. I'm you're not gonna fool me, man, because I'll do my research. All right. So listen, when you look at civilizations of old, right? Let's say ancient Egypt, let's say all the civilizations of West Africa, North Africa, East Africa, and Central Africa, Native Americans, right? What do you see? You don't see one giant freaking pyramid, right? You don't see that. What you see is communities that live up to a certain level, right? And which is sustainable. Why is that important? All right, you might be more familiar with the Native Americans, right? Why is that important? It's important because the system doesn't get so big that now those that are supposed to be at the top, who are supposed to be true leaders, AKA lead servant, right? They're the lead servants. They serve everybody else, not the bottom serves them, right? They serve everybody else. And speaking to the intent, it's the desire. These are usually the healers. These are usually the mediators. These are usually the peacemakers. These are usually the ones who are looking out for everybody else's good. And you know what? So that they can do that, right? So that they can do that, the rest of the population chips in what? 10% of what they make, so that that person doesn't have to go work the fields, and they could play that role of mediator. Where y'all think all that stuff comes from, right? So we completely lost that when we introduced greed from a completely different lifestyle, a way of living, where those at the top then say, I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to mediate anymore. I don't want to. Why am I doing this? I'm the one who's going between all these people. Why don't I start spreading lies? Why don't I start turning folks against each other? Why don't I start doing this? Why don't I start doing this? For what? To benefit me, right? That's to speak to your intent piece of it. And I say, when you study these civilizations, we call them civilizations, as they're some bizarre, like whatever. I hate those terms anyway. But when you look at it, it's important, because what's happened now is that our top are so far from producing, they don't even know. They couldn't tell you a thing about growing a carrot, right? They couldn't tell you the first thing about how that food that they eat, right? That animal that they eat every single day, right? They couldn't tell you how that animal came to the table. So I bring this up because it ties directly to health. The further we move away from that, the further we move away from that way of living, the further we move away from our nature, literally our nature as humans. The further we move away from our nature, literally our connection to nature, the further we move towards consumerism, the more health issues arise, right? Simply removing our foot contact from the earth. Why? Oh, something could pierce this, da, da, da. Well, if you look at literally foots of old, right? That wasn't a concern. Because it was literally functioning differently, right? But now we soften it up, you know what I'm saying? Excuse my language here, but we soft as putty. I changed it a little bit for you guys. We soft. Literally every generation that goes by, we think we're healthier, but we're not, right? We're basically being supported by machines. Hello, right? We're basically supported by a machine as opposed to our system taking care of us. So then when we go and the CDC tells us all this nonsense, that is blatant nonsense, that if you know the first thing about biology, you got to sit back and be like, huh? You don't want me to breathe? You don't want me to get any sun? Wait, what? Why aren't you telling me to get my minerals up?
Yeah.
If it's that big of a deal, if the world is that far gone and is that dangerous, bruh, everybody should be getting more sun. Everybody should be breathing more. Everybody should be moving more. Everybody should be eating better. Everybody should be moving a little. Like, we should be doing all of these things. Why isn't the institution, let me highlight that again. Why isn't the institution, one more time for the folks in the back, why isn't the institution that's supposed to be taking care and giving us our health not telling us any of this? But yet they tell us to what? Inject something into our arm, pop a pill. What? Bro, like, this is not even it's just common sense. This is common sense.
But people are too far gone. Like that is in essence kind of what Stu was saying at the beginning. Most people are just walking around like, I got my job, I got my thing, I'm just here, right? I party, I hang out, and we're not using our brain. There's a quote that I don't remember who said it, but I know I've posted it once or twice, that like, thinking is the hardest thing for a man to do. No wonder why men don't think, or something like that, right? Just meaning like people in general, right? Like actually using your brain and actually thinking, like it takes like awareness. It takes like, you have to pay attention. You have to be locked in, right? So at the end of the day, most of us and most people around are walking around, like you said, Stu, in the Matrix, just right? Like just not anything's going on. My life is my life. But then, like you said, I think that this past year opened the eyes of millions of people to understand, like, this doesn't actually make sense to me in so many different areas, And some people chose to do different things with that information. Some people chose to be like, well, it is what it is. And some people decided to press in, get more information, learn a little bit more, right? Like this time, I think, and I don't remember where I read this or saw this, but like vaccines was like one of the highly Googled words, like in, the past like 6 months or something. Like people are learning about vaccines, just vaccinations in general, just like
wasting your time Googling it.
But literally, it's
institution.
We understand these things, but people don't. So they have to start at whatever level that they're coming in or getting out of the matrix in, right? Like a lot of times, the level that sometimes we're talking in our respective areas is like people have cognitive dissonance, right? Like their belief system is so deep rooted, not knowing these things, that when they hear information that doesn't support it, they actually can't grasp it. Like it doesn't make any sense, and they push against. This is what was happening with the George Floyd situation, and what was happening in all the racial, injustice. Was like there was just a group of white people in general that just like they couldn't wrap their head around it. It was just because it was a little bit too far from what their actual belief system was, and that happens in all areas. That happens with people in their money when it comes to talking about things like cryptocurrency and the blockchain and, digital wallets and all these types of things. Like I was going to take it back to what you said, Kobi. You talked about like assets being right. Real assets being the basics, real assets, things that you can see that, will again, grow in value or will be able to cash flow you. Real assets, things that you can hold on to. Here's the other side of it. Some people think that their home is an asset, like the house that they buy. Some people don't even know that like it's the bank's asset, right? It's on their asset column. It's on your liabilities column, right? Like you pay the bank for that house. So even the term
until
asset,
you finally pay it off in 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, Stu, you'd stop paying your taxes. Guess who takes it? That's right. Government comes in. Oh, you didn't pay your taxes on this house. It's never really going to be the thing, like the asset that you think it is. And again, this is terminology. So when we get back to basics, when we get back to the basics in money, when we get back to the basics in health, right? Little things like that. Some people are just too far in the matrix to really hear what we're saying. So what did happen though, back to Stu's point, what did happen is I think we got a step closer. Everyone that wasn't deep in the matrix, they got a step closer. They got 2 steps closer to be like, this is a little weird. Why are we doing this? And that's, I think, what will prove, this new normal, this, how we're going to be able to adapt. It's when people get more aware, become more aware of the fact that they're in the matrix, that institutions run this thing, that, right? Like bigger, like the powers that be. That's why we say that, right? The powers that be are the ones pulling the strings. And, it ties into everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Dude, the intent piece, I just want to hype on real quick. Like there could be infinite number of possibilities behind the intent of all this regulation and control, right? The 2 big ones that always speak to my mind is one that could be touched on earlier, which is I'm looking out for me. Some other people are producing and it's going to trickle its way up, so I don't have to produce. That's one. The other is, and I'm doing it, Star Wars. Have you guys both seen Star Wars?
I'm not even a movie person, bro. So like, no, I haven't. And I know that's like a good
Star Wars.
There we go.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'm gonna ruin the whole movie for you right now. So Star Wars was a giant satire not even satire, because it really wasn't for humor at all in any sense of the word, but it was pointing out how theoretically the dark side was going about their entire motivation for controlling people and having them comply was because they believed that free choice and freedom was dangerous. They believed that led to chaos, disruption, violence. And instead, they have everybody comply through fear tactics, which we 100% would see in things like Nazi Germany. And they would go about this. And that's why I love so much. All three of us have a passion for history. Kobi and I have talked about it quite a bit. He has dedicated quite a bit of time there. History is everything. And really where I'm going with this is the intent. I like to bring that up because it's so easy for us all. We all have our ideas. We all have our percentage-based assumptions of whether or not this is true. It's like 90% true, like who knows, whatever. Like it's our best guess based on like how on earth could we possibly be not told, like Kobi says and Chris says about the actual ways to be healthy. Why are you giving us cures when to symptoms when you don't give us cures to root problems? And I'm going in that direction because I want to point out that this has been pointed out. That was in the 60s when that stuff came out. And it was massive. And what's crazy is it was literally there as like a, hey, we're allowed to get away with this because at first glance, this is fantasy. But if you look at the deeper meaning, this is what we're trying to tell you is happening. Big Brother is taking over because some individuals think that the masses should be controlled because otherwise chaos ensues. So to me, I find that very interesting because I feel like each generation like learns this, and with the internet, maybe we're able to learn it at a younger age. I think with certain types of nurtures that we go through, I think the three of us had very like good nurtures that either helped us in some way, whether it was more self-made or the parents or whatever. And man, all of that, I think the intent piece is key for understanding how to fix it. But also, I want to highlight, and I know we got to wrap up soon. I want to highlight how right now a lot of history is being deleted. A lot of like Dr. Seuss books, a lot of old cartoons.
Yeah, what's up with this Dr. Seuss thing, bro? Like I've heard that too, but I haven't. Dude,
I think this should be our Clubhouse topic, man, because I could go on about this.
Maybe we should go in the Clubhouse and
you're
talk
deleting
about
history.
Listen, before we go down that route, they've been deleting history for a very long time, guys.
That's also very true. That's also very true.
Like, come on now, you know what I mean? So let's go
not saying it's new. Not saying it's
way
new.
back from. I know you're not. I'm saying this for the general public here. But it's let's go all the way back from the theft of Egypt, right? I mean, let's go back from we completely wiped out. I mean, those who were native to this land, man. This has been going on for a really, really long time. So, listen, I think in terms of intent, man, what I want to say, and then you guys can give your closing thoughts to wrap up this segment before we move over to Clubhouse. Go ahead and join us in Clubhouse. Is what I realized and what came up for me in 2020 is that there's a role to play here, and for me, it starts with health. There's a lot of people chasing money out here. Money is just is like second, third degree to energy, right? So what I mean by that is simply, money as we know it now was simply just a paper representation of gold that was in the vault, right? And the gold, it's dubious whether the gold is even in the vault anymore, right? So we don't even know, right? But everybody's chasing money, right? Got it. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to say that clearly. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And I don't think there's anything to be fixed necessarily, right? I think it's time for individuals to take responsibility, 100% responsibility for themselves and their family units. Okay. So what I mean by that is, listen, the pay attention to the number 7. Okay. We could go into numerology for days and whatnot, but there's 7 doctors of nature. There's also 7 primary needs. There's 7 sins, right? So when you look at your health, right, which starts, I say we start from that because it literally impacts how we think, right? We've been kind of indoctrinated to believe that thinking is higher than feeling. I disagree, right? I totally disagree. Why? Because I believe that we are born whole and complete, okay? And when we are in tune with ourselves, we're actually all connected. So when you're in tune with yourself, let me tell you the experience. When I came off my juice feast or fruit feast, both of them actually, there's no way you pick up a gun and shoot somebody. There's no way. There's the thought wouldn't even cross your mind because of the state and the vibration and frequency of which you're vibrating at. But see, when you fill your body with dense metals, with dense food, with toxic air, with poor movement, with terrible polluted water, and you don't laugh and you don't rest because you're out here chasing what? Paper, right? You're not a better person. I'm sorry. You're not, right? I'm not a better person, right? I know the thoughts that go through my head when those things occur, right? And I know the thoughts that go through my head when I move towards high frequency foods that we're meant to eat. Why do you think it's so incredibly important for that he who shall not be named to continue to buy farmland all across the world and control our food supply, and then fund literally our entire research and medical system that is encouraging us to go inject ourselves with liquids, with unknown substances in the hopes of getting healthy? When I could tell you right now, my friend, that getting healthy has to do with sun, air, exercise in terms of movement. I'm not talking about lifting weights at the gym, right? I'm talking about breath, right? Water that we consume that's not toxic, food that we consume at high frequencies, and laughter with our fellow people. Why do we sit in AP Bio or wherever you got this information from, and it tells you that literally everything on this earth and beyond is connected? Literally. No, I'm not talking like, oh, connected in some fictitious way, but matter is all the same, right? So we really gotta, and I hope I'm not speaking too much, like, going over too many people's head. If it is, hit me up, follow me. You already know what it is. But we've been indoctrinated to think, oh yeah, thinking about literature and all this stuff is just like so much better. But I'm here to tell you that brain gut connection and feeling, cleaning that up, cleaning your gut and cleaning the pus out of your head, literally, and allowing you to vibrate at a higher frequency will lead to a better world. No question about it. Why? Because it's real hard, man, to not have love for living things. It's real hard to not have love for your brothers and sisters. It's real hard to not look and say, man, that person is suffering. Let me go give them a shirt off my back, right? When you're out here kind of following these things, and it goes in this order, all right? If you're taking notes, take this down. If you're taking notes, take this down. It goes first and foremost, breath. Second, hydration. Third, sleep. I don't know what just happened, but third, sleep. Fourth, food that you're consuming. Fifth, love. Sixth, growth. And seventh, movement. If we focus on that, if the CDC would teach that, if these institutions would teach that, we won't need to figure out all this stuff about who has atomic bombs and this, that, and the third and all this stuff, right? It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. And if you don't believe me, sign up for my solid food vacation and I'll help you get through it. And you go ahead and see how you felt before and how you feel at the end of it. And the truth shall be clear to you.
Mic drop. Way to close this out. That was it. Again, you guys heard it. Everyone that's listening, watching, like, you understand, one, how passionate Kobi is about his health and about our health and about the ways that we've been lied to. And that's where we're about to jump into Clubhouse. Kobi, I want you to jump into Clubhouse and I want you to start the conversation right there. Everyone that's watching and listening right now, join us in Clubhouse. We're jumping over there right now. We're going to continue the conversation.
See you in Clubhouse.
This is the time you're going to get a chance to engage with us if you want to, but join us over there on Clubhouse right now. For everyone that joined us this week, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We went live on IG, so IG, thank you so much. Also, we're going to do this every Thursday. It looks like it's going to work out this way, and we're going to catch you guys next week for another episode of The Good Life. We love you guys. Take care.